show you kind of some several projects, and kind of starting with the first project that I consider being my first architectural work until what I do today. And as a main direction, I think my work changed from a more systematic approach to that later to more concept, and I think more and more it's just about composition. I eventually just start to show the work. The first work I would like to show you is actually a work I did as a student at the school with Valerio Giatti, and we had to choose a site. I chose a site in Zurich and had to do an architecture studio for ourselves. And that is the site I chose, and this is already the final model. We have kind of a concrete building with 3 floors. And you see here in section, it's 3 floors above ground and a floor below ground. And I'd like to explain how it works. So basically, you enter that building through the stairs, you say hi to the secretary, you would walk around the stairs and take up that stairs, and you would arrive here, go up to the first floor, and then work, and these are kind of the draft spaces in that floor. Now, when I would come as the imaginary boss of this studio, I would also come in here, say hello, but I would take these main stairs, that one here, and I would then walk up through the working area, so nobody would really see me. What I would do, and I could kind of sneak through, go on the top floor, and arrive in this little reception room, go into my modest little studio, and here would be the library, here is a meeting room, and with that stairs you could connect down to the lower level, where the workers are. And if you look at the model, you see actually that, or I would like to show you how this structure works of that building. Basically, there is this core, and this core has 4 cantilevering beams, and the roof plate in between those beams is suspended and is actually the thickest on the top because of its moment. The next plate is spanned from that cantilever to this one, and since we are too long, it would have a tendency to bend down, and that pillar is actually pulling it up so it stays straight. It's a pillar on tension and not on pressure, but it still is formulated as if it would be on pressure. The next slab, this one here, is actually hung up on this beam and on this one. It's also a traction cable. And actually the only beam that there is really on compression are those 4 in the middle. And when you look at the floor plans on top of each other, I think they kind of reproduce the principal spaces we can do in architecture. The first one is on ground floor, is the one that is very open. Kind of it has no limits, like the space just flows through. The second one is a very contained, closed space because the pillars are in the middle, in the perimeter. And the third kind of space is the kind of the one where you have a back with a front. So actually, in that project, space and structure is completely interlinked one produces the other, and it's not really clear, you know, what came first. And of course, that produces spatially this idea of a complete open space, whereas the contained form, and the third, the one with the direction. And what I also find actually quite interesting in this project is that even though it's a very simple project, it just has like 3 spaces, in reality it has quite a complex way to connect these different floors. And I think it also does it because in a certain way this whole drama of this facade kind of attracts the main attention, while then in the back suddenly something can happen. What I find also is interesting, and started also in that project, is that the reading of that building is multiple. I mean, one could on one hand say it's kind of some kind of Greek temple because of the architrave, of the 3 partition. One could also say it's a kind of a modulo with the kind of with the pillars going on. But the more you study it, you realize actually it's none of the 3. And I think it's maybe in this project that I understood what Jeremy said about director. I mean, as an architect, you really lead or also mislead people looking at your work. The next project I would like to show you is in Italy, in Liguria. It's called the House in Bonassola. It's at the coast, very beautiful coast, going down into the sea. And the way it actually started, or let's say the principal idea of this building, is that I realized that almost all buildings look nice and all new buildings look bad. I tried to find out why, and I have the impression, or had the impression, one of the main reasons was that all these contemporary plasters really just look bad. They had no backing. So I thought I would try to make a building that already when it's built, it looks like at least 500 years old. It should almost look like a ruin when it's built. So technically, I would use then this insulation concrete, which basically makes you have only one wall, more or less, and the gray sand, the gravels, with this on the top is the normal concrete, are replaced by Liave, which is kind of an expanded glass, and Liapo, which is kind of archi, another material that is having basically bubbles inside that can keep air and make it insulated. And without knowing any form yet of the building, I also started to try to make that all details that they kind of vanish, that they wouldn't be here, so that it would look like a ruin, right? Like an abandoned house. Of course, with the windows, it's not so simple. I would kind of end up with the idea that you just place them really like outside, so you never see any door handles, at least from inside. You don't see door handles or any window frames. This is the side. It's just this very little tiny area, and this is the view from this house. Here we see a model, and you basically arrive from a little street, and you walk on the roof, sit down onto the sea, and then you take this little step and enter into a garden, which looks more or less like that. And another topic that started with that building is that I think there is kind of 3 principal exercises in architecture. One is say, the details. Another one is, I would say, like building blocks, and the third is the surrounding. And in that building, you kind of, the middle scale, the building blocks, is kind of vanished. So you have to imagine this is such a small garden that you can never perceive the building as a monument or as an object. You kind of, on one hand, you only constantly walk along the concrete, and you're facing it because it's kind of 1 meter of space between the house and the walls. And when you turn yourself, you have this view into the endless sky. So the perception is only material versus sky, and no perception of a monument. And I think that also works quite well with that concrete that actually we chose, especially we chose a company that never made visible concrete before. So, and we also asked them to use kind of the Roman technique where the metals, I don't know how you call that, to make a stable formwork is not possible. So the concrete would look really bad from the beginning. And I also think that produces a lot of man traces, which is, I mean, it's part of this idea of this house, of man's traces versus cosmos. This is a floor plan of the building, and so you basically come down here the stairs, and then you come into this one big space. And this large space is basically divided into 2 rooms, this room and this room, by getting more narrow here, and also on the roof. And they are, in a certain way, they're opposites, because this is a kind of a central space with 4 windows in their centers, and that space only has a small top roof. And basically this comes from that there is also kind of a summer condition, and then there is a winter condition. So in summer you're really happy to be away of any sunshade, or you want to be in the dark, whereas in the spring and autumn it's a really nice way to be open. And I like also this idea of flickering, so that or of double presence. So let's say when you're in this space, you actually are in this space of opening, but you also see at the same time its opposite, that closed space. And I always think it's quite beautiful to feel something and its opposite at the same time. There is another issue about this house. I would like that in this space is actually only this main space, but unfortunately it also needs a sleeping room. So I tried to find a way to add a sleeping room without without showing where the sleeping room is. And the proposal is basically this stair here, and that's how it works. This stairs starts in the space, goes down 5 steps, which makes that when you're here, you're already kind of 1 meter below further down, which also makes that the opening here is only like 1 meter high. So when you're looking from here, it has an opening that has kind of the size of a chimney. I think kind of when you are here, you can perceive that opening more as a chimney in a ruin than an entry door into the space below. That's then how it works. You come down the stairs and have another bedroom. Here a section with that one roof, the windows. first kind of trials in the models, and actually we're now finally about to finish, and it actually also kind of looks like that. I hope it's this idea of, you know, of absence of any, let's say, any plastics and any expression of time in a certain way. Here we see the construction way. You also see this Roman way I was talking about. It's basically just put boards that you hold them and they're not really tight. That you see that's how it looks. I mean, the whole concrete is poured out. The next very beautiful thing is that you could let the tree very close to the building. So this kind of this physicality of this building, I think also because of that tree and the proximity to the materials, is very large. So that's kind of construction side and some first view of how this building looks. The next project is the house in Pascal that you maybe probably most of you know, or maybe you know. This is a building in the Yuga, this Yuga, and when I got the commission, I thought that this area is in a certain way very boring, because it has absolutely nothing to go. It has no communal life, it has no library, it has no neighbors. It's in a certain way, quite a frustrating place. But of course, the only thing that it really has, it has a very beautiful nature. So I thought I would like to produce a building that you're able to stay kind of 2 weeks only in the house. And if you're not bored after 2 weeks, you know, then if I find a design where I can imagine to stay 2 weeks, then I will do it. So what I propose to do so is to staple 3 very different spaces to confront the nature, basically, or let's say all these spaces are different concepts of perception of nature. I'll start to explain. First one is that space. It's a very low space. It's like 2.30 meters, something like that. But it's extremely horizontal. It's fully glazed all over, so it means you have no back. And another feature is that it's slightly kind of table height sunk into the earth. And I have the impression that this space, I kind of call it the animalistic space, or kind of a very primal space, because it's a space where in a certain way you're very exposed. It's also a space where in a certain way afraid, also at night, and there are animals. You're in a space that you're not really secure. And also, I think because everything is glazed around. As a counteract, I propose this idea to kind of go into the earth, to hide, almost to hide out. So I think it's some very principal ideas on our human condition or psychology of being afraid and of hiding, and to put this hiding and being exposed in a balance that starts to intrigue you. And you also have to know that, I mean, here, for example, if a cow walks around, that cow has the head kind of up here, and the person in the building down here. So you look up at this animal. It's actually quite a frightening space also. But that's the first space. The second space is that one here on the top here, which has a very different idea. It's kind of a very mental space, I would call it. It's a space like in a museum where you look at nature as like you look at a museum on a painting. It's a vis-a-vis condition. The center is very clearly man in the space, and he looks at something. And then the third space is the one below the earth, and that is actually a space that has no relation to the site. That's kind of the daydream space, or that's the space that could be anywhere. It could also be in India or somewhere. It's also the space, I think, where you not, or the idea is a space where you're not conscious of yourself or of your surrounding. And all those three principal spaces are then directly linked by a spiral stair. I go with you through the building, so that's how you approach the building. You go down, you slope to the ground. This is a floor plan, so it has all around this table, and then it's fully glazed. And as you see this table, you can either close it or open those doors, and then it becomes kind of an office, which was never done my office here. Or you could also open these things and put the books in or so. And down here is a kitchen. How it looks. In order to keep the kitchen at the same height, you go one step down, because the kitchen is usually a bit higher than a table. And then the next floor, very different one, is the one on the top, with this almost 6 meter high space, person in the center, and the landscape as a picture. And also the way it's divided here, it's almost like in a military condition. It's just basically a rectangle that is divided into 4. It's kind of the most military or strategic way to divide space, as an opposite also to the spaces below. And you have like here these 4 doors, so you can go from one space to the next. And actually the connection down to the main stairs is not seen because these are flush doors. Somehow in each world is almost like separated from the other ones. This is an image here through this space at this moment, and I think actually I would quickly like to talk on this moment, which I realize later it's a very important moment. One is, I chose this circle for several reasons. One is I use this circle to destroy the structural relation, because this is actually a beam and below there are pillars. So, when this circle is entered, you don't feel anymore that is a beam, because the beam is completely broken. That's the first reason. The second reason is I wanted that when you are sleeping in that room, that you are aware that you are part of all the other family members, since I actually think being in such a lonely house, suddenly compared to a city house, it's very important to feel kind of other humans in that house. So I wanted that even though if the doors is closed, you feel you're part of it. And now when this door is closed here, you are facing exactly half a circle. And I think there is no other form that speaks out more that actually the form is half of an entity. So it's really obviously connecting that space with the other space. And then there is another quite beautiful thing going on in that space. You have like four different scales at the same time. You have this. You have the nails and the nails of the doing. You have the mankind, which is kind of the size of the circle. Then you have the space of the room, and the fourth, the horizontality. And all those four principal scales in one room. Something else that I think is important is this notion of fragility. I have the impression, at least in Europe, and I guess it's similar here, we start to build everything in a way so all fragility is gone. You can basically kind of kick into everything and it still holds. Our apartments lose the softness, and they lose also the fact that they could break. And I think in a certain way, we kind of lose quite the quality. This notion of that things could also break, or that we should take care of things. And by pulling this door kind of into all this woodwork and into the glass, I think it's just a very, very obvious way of a very fragile condition. And I think it's a value. Bath, also everything is in wood, and maybe a little thing I also thought of this wood. Even though I come from Switzerland and a chalet place, I actually don't like wood buildings because I have this memory of this yellow bush, kind of yellow closed family things, and I suddenly realized that most of these chalets, they appear so yellow because there is this yellow wood and some white plaster as a reference in the same space. So actually it's the white plaster that makes you see how yellow the wood is. And as a consequence, I thought I just have to make everything in wood. So you don't have any references anymore, and it just becomes like cardboard, or it's just the wood is just any material, kind of a construction material. And yeah, that is the reason the building is in wood. Then I lived some years in it, and I think now actually I think it's really nice to live in it because it's so soft. It's good. Then this is the top room, which is just a small guest room. And from here you have the stairs going down that lowest room, which looks like that, which is this third category of absence of surrounding. Basically, what happens here is this space here is turned 90 degrees onto the other side, so there's just a little top line. Building looks from outside. Good, great. The next building I would like to show you is a house in Scotland, and it's for a banker that goes back from London, back his origins or his home base. And what is really striking actually on this island is that's how it looks everywhere. There are kind of no trees. There are only actually stone and moss and water. So I tried to make a building that is a kind of a personal interpretation or a personal dealing with the idea of rocks and the idea of water. And I mean, I come from Switzerland, which is mountainous and really far off the sea, but I realized that the fascination for the sea is for me that it has, on one hand, this very tangible fascination. So When you go into the sea, it's kind of it's this, or yeah, into the ocean. It's salty. It's usually cold water, so it's very much something of the body. But at the same time, it's also very mental because you kind of think you don't know how big the water is, and you start to think about the globe, and you start to think about a very big scale. So it's almost kind of a concept, I think, that the idea of the sea, because again it has this flipping between the very physical and kind of the very big scale. So what space can you kind of propose to such a crazy beauty, or to such a concept almost? And what I propose is to propose the most man-made or the most abstract space I can imagine proposing that concept. And what I propose is a space that is fully circular and cut in the middle. So it's a half circle as a form. I have the impression this half circular space is the most abstract space I can make. And what is also quite beautiful is that half the circle has kind of no dimension. It doesn't matter how big it is. As a concept, it's always as strong, trying to somehow battle with this idea of the sea. And for the rock, which is the second topic, I propose another space which is somehow more relaxed. It's simply a kind of a very large activated field by making a very big circular wall, which I think that circular wall just activates kind of the terrain, what is inside. This produces the following plan. So down here is the water. We have this abstract half space, and then this second space, which is the circular space. It's the space of the rock. And again, kind of the transition to go from one to the other is very immediate. You're just in your one condition or go straight to the other condition. And then there is a third, I think, very important space with this one that kind of comes from Caesar, which says something that I find very interesting. He said that the tragedy of the kind of the singular house, of the one family house, is the loneliness of the people. And he thinks the most important part of a one family house is actually that little carpet in front of the house, which in a certain way is the kind of the entry for guests. Kind of there it shows how open a guy is to his guests. So I also try to make, in a certain way, a very inviting space. So it's very small, kind of five almost neoclassical five wall room, and in the middle you have this chimney. So this chimney is, on one hand, is the only thing that actually connects this space with that one. I think I could imagine, for example, in the evening, if you're sitting here and your partner is here, you're so much in a different space, but that actually somehow that fire manages to cool down and to kind of produce a normality in a certain way, connect them. And The same is kind of this entry room. You come and you're already kind of part of that fire for the house. Then in the back here are some sleeping rooms that are actually not so important. So yeah, that is a close-up of that room. You take down here the stairs, and you come to a basement. And he really likes ship, so driving around the ship, and his wife is a ceramic pottery, so that's why this looks like this. This is a first model kind of that round, semi-round space, and this is a rendering of the kind of that of the rock space. The next building I show you is a house for an artist and his family, and I think some people know him here for and when we started to look at his house, it's this one here, it's in Appenzell in Switzerland. The problem of this house is that everybody really likes it, the way kind of it sits here in such a, it's a relaxed good way. It's not pretentious, but it's quite big. We feel it has been here for long. But the problem of it is that each floor here in this inside, they're kind of, 160. So it means like you cannot stand. You cannot stand in one single floor. And the family obviously didn't have the money yet to change it, or they liked it, but mainly they would just sit here in this place and go sleep there. So the question is now like how to deal with that house. And what we propose to do is in a certain way to keep the house. And what we do is we cut off these three roofs, everything that kind of sticks out here, and we cover the windows with a very thin plywood, and we use that wall as the coffrage, as the holder of a concrete, because we place a second skin outside and we pour concrete in between, and like that we can kind of exactly copy only the form, not really all expression of the windows, but just kind of this principal form of these two volumes that by time kind of merged into each other. And we will then make one very large space. I mean, we will, let's say, pour the concrete until the roof and everywhere, and then we burn the wood. So it's only the big concrete shell is remaining. And in that part here, we make in timber a very small apartment that is going to be heated. So a little kitchen and very small bedrooms in that part. And the first time you can actually then also feel that space and this intersection of these two rooms as an inside room. It looks, in a model, it looks more or less like that. And basically the only thing that we do new is to give that house like a serious entry. So that kind of, it doesn't rain on your head when you arrive. And that's basically the only thing that is really composed or designed in a certain way is then this roof and this pillar. And as an inside space, it will look like that. We see now here like the interstitial of these two spaces. Towards the south, it has one opening, mainly also to actually heat it, and to the side window. This is the door to go into the timber apartment behind, and that is kind of the little stair that will lead you from floor to floor, from floor to floor. Good. The next topic that I would like to show you that I'm actually personally interested is like, you know, like what makes you do architecture? I mean, what are kind of initial triggers? Why do we do, or why do I do architecture in a certain way? And I think I found out that I find really nice to just put things together, or put things on top of each other, or put things next to each other. And what is very beautiful is that when you take one thing and you combine it with something else, there is just suddenly a completely new meaning. This is something new is happening just by putting things on the top of each other. And I'll show you some fascinations I have. So this was, for example, an exhibition, mainly here with the work, but then also in here there was this circles that I started to do, which is almost like, you know, like it's just things put on top of each other, but they start to be somehow some creatures or kind of some things. I don't really know what it is, but they start to have almost their own identity. And when they are now even in a circle, they're almost like a Geheimbund, you know, like a little community kind of talking together. So yeah, that is about putting stuff on top of each other. Or maybe you remember that first picture with the office. That is actually just half of a picture is the original, and then it was just mirrored. So actually this is a fake reality. It's 2 times the same picture. Or what we also saw in the beginning, it's these are some wooden toys that I just put it on top of each other, and they're photographed kind of on chart. Or this is also kind of an early picture, you know, there is this, and I think that's also kind of what we should try to do with architecture. We propose something, or we make a scenario, and we try to find out if it maybe works, you know, or if it could work, and we produce kind of this tension. And I mean, I guess you all understand it somehow, this idea of will the donkey go to the carrot? You know, will he walk or not? And I think this moment of tension or of speculation, that is what I am fascinated in, and I think that is also nice for our brain if we understand the problem and are not sure if it eventually will happen or not. Or this I find also quite fascinating. This was I received this little horse as a gift from somebody, I think from Mexico, and I find it very fascinating that this horse somehow ends up in my place, you know, in my forest. And suddenly it just produces new conditions that this Mexican horse somehow ends up in my forest just by placing it together. Or this is also a picture I like a lot. It's from a German bee movie, and I think this is, I mean, this starting point, or this image as a starting point we don't know really what happened. You know, why is he having this white clothes? Is this a man? Is this a woman? What happens? And I think again, just by putting them together, a whole world kind of starts by putting them together. Or this was for another this was a work for an exhibition where I just put those pieces on top of each other. Or this was a project for a golf club in Switzerland, where I juxtaposed or opposed two very different spatial concepts. The first is kind of this plan you see here, which is kind of this rectangular plan, and which has this roof on the top. So from here to here it has this roof, and on the other hand it has this slight curve in the plan. And I always thought this is it's a complexity that is very nice for a human brain to imagine this slight curve in one direction and the other curve in the ceiling, and that it produces actually a very strong idea of horizontal space. And then almost arbitrary, somewhere we could say, without preparation, there is this little stairs. You go down that stairs and you come into a first preparation space, and then you enter into this round space that is completely different from that horizontal space. And you also see it in section here. Below is the round space that has, due to the slope, it has kind of an opening here, and we actually see it as a main picture. So it's this opening here and some light coming in here and here, and I think again, I mean, both spaces are nice, but it's actually even wilder that they just clash, and it's also just putting stuff on top of each other. It's how the model looks. Or this one was a competition for a police station in Zurich, and there it's kind of an addition of different styles. So there's kind of a functionalist style on below, and then kind of this American prairie house style, and then on the top kind of a Maya architecture. And what I find is it was very beautiful in architecture that we have this capacity that because we materialize things, we can just put it on the top of each other and just give it one material, and the result is just one physical thing that actually we cannot really read what is the new outcome of it. Or this is a competition, also a project for Eliseo, the new school of design. This is the main drawing room, and I find quite beautiful to, this entry situation here with these strange stairs and another stair and kind of this lift being put arbitrarily into this space. And that's maybe where this idea of composition starts, but also this wish to produce somehow undefined or unclear but quite precise spatial conditions. Similar kind of with this courtyard on the side. Or then inside this space has like two spatial directions that don't go into the same direction. We have one in this direction and another one in this direction, and kind of these pillars that are clearly just, this beam is just placed below the main ceiling, and it remains visible as an addition. And in a certain way, also this Chicago project can be seen as a same thing. Actually, it's just stuff put on the top of each other. And maybe to quickly say, in Chicago, I tried to put things on the top of each other that you don't know what it is, but in the end it should just make you happy. And that's why I call it kind of this happiness that has no connotation.
course, producing it was quite difficult because you start to do something and then you realize, oh shit, it looks like wood, or it makes me think of this and that. And the whole work was actually to constantly take stuff away. As soon as I was thinking of something, I tried to take it away. And of course, also, it will never really work. I mean, everything just has a connotation, right? But it's also quite beautiful and I think quite joyful to somehow play fight against this mechanism. I think a lot of people in the end call it something like ice cream cubes or something else. That's a close-up of it. Yeah, and then I show you one more project. It's in Saint-Didier. It's a little house, and it's basically, there was a client that wanted the Pascal house, and then we realized it's actually much too small. So we made, this is a version of the Pascal house in very small, in kind of 7 times 7 meters. And here a new topic comes into this project, and it's also about stapling stuff on top of each other. And those two things are the world of 3 and the world of 4. I have the impression those two worlds are very different worlds. The world of 3 is kind of, you know, the tripod. It's kind of the engineer's world, or the stability world. And the world of 4 is our world of representation, front, back, and 2 sides. So I think it's a very different world, and I try to somehow put those two worlds into each other or on each other, and that looks like the following. So it's basically, I mean, in the ground floor, for example, it's a building with 4. It's a square with 4 walls, but it only has like three pillars. Or in the upper floor, it only has 3 walls. That with that roof, it kind of produces very strange roof shapes here, because the walls below these 3 don't fit kind of with the upper world. So yeah, it's this 3-4 idea, which this whole building would look more or less like that. And I also started again that these pillars, they become kind of like figures, like in these circles. They become kind of personalities or something. That is a rendering from upstairs. And it's a strange superstition. Good. And maybe, I think this is almost the last, this house in Harris, the first you saw with the circle. At one moment I received an exact plan of the land, and I realized that just my building doesn't fit at all, and I had to make a new proposal. And it was kind of a year later, and I show you now the second version, which is a completely double version. So this is this idea of what I said in the beginning, like of this composing. So there is no more concept, there is no more duality, there is just, in a certain way, just placing of space or composing space. And in a certain way, I can also not really say a lot about this building. I'll just mentally walk with you through it. So you park your car and you come in this compressed space. It opens into this kitchen, dining area. From here you go into a living room with this glazed space below a circular roof. In the back you have kind of an outside space that is protected from the wind. From here you go into a library with a very horizontal window. And then in this been dragged when you're back in the room. What maybe remained from the old project is this idea that actually the chimney links all the spaces, and the building looks like that in the facades. So kind of, you cannot read any principal oneness. No, there is no overall rules. It's just purely composed. Another little house we're doing is a house for a farmer in Waldstall, right next to this the Waldstall house, the wood house. And I'm sorry, unfortunately, it's hardly readable, but this is a plan, and it's a rectangular plan, and it has kind of one wall. And we also have to say in the middle is the pitch, so as you see here in this section, it just goes up in the middle 10 meters. It's 10 meters high, and here it's like something like this, very low. And the floor follows the terrain, which goes slightly down and onto the road. And this man, this farmer, just wants a house to eat and to sleep and to wash himself. And again, the superstition of this section and this spatial division, I think, produces very beautiful and actually also quite complex spatial form that manage, I think, to keep the tension in the house. Oh yeah, then, I'm sorry, I showed you one more. This is a house we're doing at the Lac de Gruyère, which is a lake in Geneva. And this is for a family with 4 kids. And the owner, the man, is a doctor. He's a doctor, and he loves to repair his cars also. So we kind of divide the full house in a certain way in this play area or the mechanic area. So you will drive in with the car into the car mechanic area. But it's also in this area where the kids sleep. And it's just actually basically just one very large space with a chimney and a little bathroom and a top roof and a desk to work and make homework. But basically, it's all connected in this, kind of to make a mess. I have kids myself, so I quite like this idea. Just a lot of stuff, like in an atelier or so. It's just messy, and you just sleep somewhere basically. And what I find is also very interesting. This house, it's very large, and that makes that in the center there is this courtyard, or there is this open, the open places. And the closer you come to the center, the more you are connected to the other family members eventually on the other floors. And the more you leave that, you start to be in your own place, like in a normal family house where you enter a room where you close the door. But here the separation between people actually just comes from the sheer distance. So in a certain way it's a machine on proximity or closeness or being far of each other. And in that way I think it's kind of a very principled idea also on family house. So that's the top floor, and then the middle floor here is that one is made basically just a kitchen and a large communal space. And then again here, this is the opening in the lowest floor. There is the parents' room and the guest room. They basically are covered in the rock and the dirt. That's how it can look, and again kind of connected yeah, again, what I would like to express with this house has no more steam or has no more concept, it has no geometric motor that runs, and everything is just kind of placed by a post or where it feels good. It's also the way we build it. There is kind of very unsystematic. Pieces are kind of just added to each other. You can always kind of read them. It actually also remains constantly a fragment. Pipes and walls are visible. It's no more an entity. It's just like a piece of junk in a good way. You know, it's just thrown on it. Or that is the other corner of this kind of floating wall with a chimney. That's the bathroom, which I quite like a lot also. So there's in the almost outside of the house is this bathroom, and then the cars actually drive above this bathroom. It's also how you will approach actually the entry door. Good. Oh, do you manage one more? Maybe, so I will tell you because I like it. This is the housing, and I started to quite some housing projects, and this is about finding new typologies between home and work. And on the other hand, it was this kind of a redo of case study in Switzerland. So they wanted us to use steel buildings, steel. So it's kind of material tests on steel. And so what I do in this project, I basically, we see here, home and work, either it's separated, office and your work, let's say office place and when you live, or you live at home and eventually you have like a computer where you work a bit, or you are in an office and you work, you live in the office, or here, what I also find is very interesting, like this monk's place, where you have very small private rooms but very large community room. And another I find interesting idea is this House of Sama from Bawa. In this house, I have the impression you're no more sure if this guy actually lives here or if he's working here. It seems like in the same room. It's kind of double condition happening. Or this is the atelier of Francis Bacon, and it seems it was eventually once more a living room that has been transformed into a working room. Or also, I find very beautiful this internal photos of Louise Bourgeois, where kind of suddenly the way she places this furniture, it's kind of a home, but it somehow also feels a bit like almost an office, or that's her kitchen that kind of becomes office. Or I find also very beautiful the way she sleeps, kind of, it seems it's no more so clear in what type we are in. Something very similar happens, I think, in most of Le Corbusier's work, of course in Cabanon, or also Weissenhof, suddenly sleeping, and it's kind of the same space where you sleep and you work. Or the Villa Radieuse, what I find also really fascinating, and I think what we lost a little bit, is that the sleeping rooms he made really very, very tiny sleeping rooms and could then kind of produce larger communal spaces. Another typology that, I don't know if you have that also in America, but in Switzerland is used to quite a common typology that you would actually sleep in the kitchen in this custom bed. So that you basically sleep in the kitchen where it's the warmest. And so this building that I then proposed on this analysis is here. And what happens actually, there are spaces that I would call too big. So they just produce generic space, kind of unspecific space. So kind of everything can happen on it. And then there is a second part of spaces which are too small. So they produce very specific space. And then on the top you will see very small apartments, apartments that are 2 square meters big, also in order to cut the costs. Another main topic of this project is that we usually put the sleeping rooms in the periphery to the glass, but the bathroom we put it into the middle of the building. So I turned it because actually I think when we sleep, I mean we can also sleep in the cage, sleep. We actually don't really need connection to outside, but on the other hand it's very beautiful to get up in the morning actually and to have a relation to outside. So in all those typology it's reversed. The sleeping is in the center and the bathroom are on the facade, which produces basically, it will come later. I mean, here is where I'll just go quick. This is one of these generic apartments that is working but also living. It's also cooking. I could imagine like a little architecture firm could also be here. And then when you go up, it's a duplex. You arrive in this typology, and here you see in the middle, these are the bedrooms. So there is kind of a double bedroom for the parents and 2 very small bedrooms here. Just like this custom, this shranks. And in the back, there is the large bathing area, which you could then later also divide. So you actually have separated bathrooms. In the model, it looks like this. So in the middle is the sleeping room, and I could imagine like during the day, you open this wall, and the bathroom and the bedroom and everything becomes one big space. And at night, if you want to get rid of the kids, you close this door, and they are kind of in their place. Looks like this, right? They go here and check, you close the door. And then another another typology is for aging people, so older people, with the idea that they have each one, let's say 2 older people live together in one room, but both have their own sleeping bedroom. I will not enter, but of course the whole project is also about, I think we should produce mixed living conditions. Young, middle, and old people should be in the same place, and we should profit from each other's kind of way of lives. So, young family, old people, communal space, and again, student housing. Then in the middle is one large floor, and then these communal apartments further up. I will not really enter, and then these very small apartments. This produces a section like that. And then maybe I quickly enter into this material of metal. We found out that with a metal plate of 1 centimeter, which is like the width of a finger, you can build metal slabs 7 stories high to hold and stiffen the whole building. So it has only these 1 centimeter thick plates, and the metal on the other side here is kind of spanned. It's a 0.5 millimeter thin sheet of metal that is just put slightly on tension, from span to span. And that is basically how that whole structure can work. This is a detail of the connection with this metal wall and the ceilings. That is more or less it's almost a paper work. It looks like it's so incredibly thin. And that's how it looks when it's built. Good. That was it for the ones that are interested. I'm about to make a book, and who's interested can send me an email, because it will eventually only go via myself and it will not go into the bookshops. That was it. Thank you very much.